Hi Elliot, thanks for grading ACF. It's my go-to plugin for sure. I just tested the RC2 and some of the three of the four bugs or issues that I have found with RC1 and prior. Three of them are still there, and one of them is being fixed. And with some of them, the duplication issues that we talked before, which I never followed out on you because I'm out of town, and a new one to save some of the blocks twice, or a dialog comes up that are you sure you want to leave the page? Your data might not be saved, but actually saves it. I can duplicate the issues. I know why the issues happen and how to avoid them. But if you can fix those, will be great. And one of them, the advanced CSS that is not working for the ACF blocks, it's still there. And I've got a couple of feature requests. They're not a big deal. The first one is inner blocks. If we can have, I guess it has to be a field, a new field type of inner blocks. But for me, it's not a big deal because I played with other plugins that offer inner blocks, especially when it comes to sections. And when you put an image or a video and they put a block inside it, the preview, it's not very good. It's not very clear. It's more of a mess. In my case, because all 33 of my blocks that I have created are the equivalent of the shortcodes that I have. So when it comes to inner blocks, let's say sections, I just throw in a tiny MC and use my shortcodes, which makes things clear, I guess, to edit in the edit screen. So it works. The second one is feature, if we can have a code, if you will, that automatically can be reused, can be displayed on every block. Let me give you an example. Let me start with this. There is a plugin that I need to install to show you, and that's going to save a little bit of code, which might translate into saving page load times and a little bit of coding actually. So I'm using the user block visibility. So basically this is going to tell me, is going to determine for each block on a block per block basis whether it's ACF or not. So it works for any block, if it's going to be displayed or not, and who's going to see it. So basically for any block, let's say on the cover block over here at the bottom, you're going to see user block visibility, and you can decide where to display it, whether the user is not logged in, user logged in, administrator, and so on and so forth. Now this is one piece of code that attaches itself in the inspector part of each block, and you don't have to, you code it once and displays everywhere, which is a nice feature to have because, at least in my case, most of my blocks, if not all of them, they have, I have top margins, bottom margins, and then animation settings. And for each block, I have to create the database fields for it in ACF, and then I have to do the actual coding for each block. If I had one that would surround those settings for each block, and all I have to do is do it once, that would be great. Again, it's not a big deal. I don't know if it's possible or not. Alright, let me get rid of this plugin really quickly, and let me continue. About the second feature, let me take you to, let's say, the section example, and as you can see, instead of having inner blocks, I put a tiny MC field, a WYSIWYG field, and then in here I can use all my shortcodes that I've created through the years, and those shortcodes are the equivalent of every single block. So basically, all the shortcodes I have translated them thanks to ACF. Thank you again. Thanks to ACF, I have converted them into blocks. So my customers will have a choice of using shortcodes or the equivalent of blocks, which is easier and more visual way of doing things. All right, those are my two features, request features. Again, it's even if we get the inner features, probably I'm gonna stick to the tiny MC solution, but there it is. A lot of people I know are requesting the inner blocks thing. All right, let's go into the bugs over here. The first one is the advanced CSS. Now, in my case, this doesn't work, by the way. And I'm a little bit surprised that not a lot of people are chiming about this or reporting this, or maybe I haven't, I missed it. So basically, I have turned off the advanced CSS for all of my blocks because simply don't work. So we can do it with your code. So as you can see, there is no advanced. So I'm gonna turn in the advanced CSS for one of my blocks. Let's go with a line break, class name. I can get rid of that. So this is the line break. If I go to a page, we have a line break here. Let me go in and out to get the new setting. All right, so the line break now is going to have the advanced CSS class available. So I'm gonna type Nick 1122. This works for the default blocks that come with WordPress, but with ACF it does not. So if I go now and view the page source and do a quick search, Nick 1122, there is a none. So it does not apply it. So this is an issue from day one, since October, since beta 1 days. The other issue that I have, the duplication issue that you wanted the files, but by the time I send you, the RC2 came out, the RC1 came out, and then I was able to find what's the issue with the duplication issues. And again, I'm a little bit surprised that not a lot of people have or nobody reported this, and I can duplicate this. The problem happens if I duplicate any ACF block, and this is only an ACF issue, not any other plugin or Gutenberg default blocks issue. It only happens if I duplicate a ACF block which is inside a column, a Gutenberg column, block column, one of the default column. If I duplicate it outside the columns, everything works fine. Let me duplicate the issue for you so you can have a better understanding. So let me go, any page will do actually. Let me go into this page, let me edit it. I'm going to start by displaying the bug, the problem, and then I'm going to make it work. So if I create a column and I'm going to put one of my blocks here, let's do the feature. I'm going to put some dummy text. Let me do it right here really quickly. Where is it? Content. Let me throw in the text. Okay, so this is it. I'm going to duplicate it, and even though I duplicated it, this does not show. This not showing up right now, it started with RC1. It wasn't working, things weren't working with beta 4 and beta 4.1. and everything, the duplication, everything was working fine with beta 3. So if you want to look at your code where the issue started, is with beta 4. With beta 3, I had absolutely no problems with duplication. With RC1, when I duplicate it, the block when it's inside the column, I don't see the duplicated block, but it's there. How do I know it's there? Because I'm going to update, and I'm going to go on the front end, and there's a first block, there is the second block. Now if I edit the page, it's going to be there. Okay, and that is not that's one of the issues, not the main issue. So at this point, let me put it on the second column, and now that disappeared. So, but they're there. All right, and now, however, the disappearing act, the Houdini act, is part of the issue. Now they're there. Because I duplicated it, it doesn't mean that they're working. So I'm going to change the text of the copied block. I'm going to put bunch of ones over here, and in the back side, it displays my editing part. And it doesn't matter what I change. If I change the icon, the title, it's all the same. So I saved it. On the front, it's not going to work. The ones, there should be a bunch of ones over here. That doesn't display. But on the back side, the ones are displayed. Okay, this is the this happens again when I duplicate ACF blocks inside a Gutenberg column. Okay, now I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna make it work now, but instead of duplicating the ACF blocks inside the column, I'm gonna duplicate it outside the column and then bring it inside the column, and things are going to work. So let me create the two columns, and then let me start creating the two blocks. Actually, I'm going to create one block and duplicate it. So I'm going to get the dummy text, content, going to dump it in there. Perfect. I'm going to duplicate. Okay. I'm going to I can do it inside or outside, doesn't make a difference. And then later, once I put it inside, I'm going to change it to 2 to 2, and it's going to work. So now I'm going to get those two blocks that I created outside the columns. I'm going to move them inside. Alright, so we have, I created two blocks outside the columns. I made a copy of the first block actually, and made changes to the second one, then put them inside the columns. I'm gonna save it. Now on the front end, it should work. I should get the ones, there's a 1 1 1, and now everything is working. And if I make changes to the duplicated block, okay, gonna make another, let's make square. Okay, everything should work, and does work. Okay, so that's how I can duplicate or redo the duplication bug. All right, so that's one more mystery out of the way. All right, in some blocks, and I didn't check if it's some blocks or all blocks, ACF blocks. This started happening with RC1, and it continues happening with RC2. If I'm in the edit mode, especially, and the one I leave it in the edit mode, I guess that's the reason why I didn't check it. It's in the section, in the sections block. If I save it once and I wanted to exit the page to preview the page, Go on the front end, it tells me that the data is not saved. Are you sure? The dialog comes up. And the way I can duplicate this error, it's when I'm in edit mode and in the sections. When it comes to my sections block, I'm always in the edit mode when I exit the page. And the way to avoid this bug, or the dialog box that opens giving me the message, it's to either be in preview mode or save it twice. Okay, so let me duplicate this issue over here. So I'm going to the page where I have, this is the cover image in Gutenberg page. I've got the my section block. So, and by the way, even though the dialog tells me that I'm losing, I might lose data, actually it saves the data. So at the bottom, I'm going to, let's say, change the bottom margin from 100 to 500. I'm going to update it while I'm in edit. It's saved. Everything, nothing is working. Everything is done. And there it is. Left side, changes you have made not be saved. And if I leave, the setting has done, because instead of 100 pixels, clearly I have more than that. It's 500 pixels to be in reality. And I'm gonna bring it back to 100 pixels. And as you can see, I'm gonna get the same message. But if I leave the page, it's saved, because now it's put 100 pixels in there. All right. In order for me to avoid this, obviously when there's a button that says do not show this message again, I don't want to do that. I want to see if there's any bugs or any issues that Gutenberg might have with my code or ACF. So I want to, or with anything, I want to see those. The way to avoid it, even though the message comes that I might lose data, it actually saves it. So I think it's something weird, or it's a false positive that it's getting, that there might be a bug in there. So in order for me to avoid that, I'm going to change back to 500, and I'm going to go into the preview mode. And if I'm in the preview mode, things are going to work fine. No message. And there's the 500 pixels. Okay? Now a second way of avoiding this is to save it twice. At least that's when I did my initial tests. So I'm gonna go to 100, back to 100 pixels. I'm gonna stay in edit so it will generate potentially the dialog. I'm gonna save it once. When it's done, I'm gonna save it twice, and now I'm not gonna get the error. All right, so that's how to duplicate this issue. It's not a big deal. I can get around it, but we're trying to build professional stuff, right? So there's going to be always, even though there are ways of avoiding it, there's always going to be people that might complain, will complain actually. All right, so the last thing, which actually it's been fixed, which was one of the things that drove me crazy from day one, since October, since beta 1, is the defaults work only after changing value, and that's been fixed. So basically I had 4 issues. One of them is being fixed with acfrc2. I have 2 feature requests. None of them are crucial. None of them is showstoppers and everything else. And once again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, because for me, it was going to be almost impossible for me to create and to convert my shortcodes. But it took me through the years, the last 2-3 years, to create them, to convert them into blocks, unless there was a software like this or another software like Lazy Blocks. But this is a much better solution for me for many reasons. So looking forward for the final product, and hopefully for at least my issues to be fixed. Thanks again, Elias, man. You rock.